today, and I'm here with Above the Stigma and a bunch of other advocates, and we're going to be talking about food anxiety and things around that, like food guilt, eating disorders, and such. So also just be aware that we will be talking about restrictive eating, even stuff like binging and stuff like that. So what I kind of really wanted to go over first is I kind of wrote down some notes, and I just want to like kind of get the thought out there that, you know, all bodies are different. And so my main focus is like a lot of people, I guess on social media, I see a lot of advertisements for dieting, diet pills, calorie counting, but they kind of don't really go into that, where like, I guess like with nutrition and stuff, it's supposed to be like calorie deficit. And a lot of people are just like, oh, count your calories. So like for me, that's how it kind of started. And once that starts happening, it just kind of becomes an obsession and you don't really realize it. For me, it was until it was getting almost too late. And that's when I kind of realized like, okay, me getting anxious when I walk into a room with snacks is not healthy. And I kind of took me a while to kind of accept that. And also because I had, you know, others who kind of were dealing with the same thing. So we were always, it was kind of just like, I was always comparing myself to other people, like how they ate, like, oh, like they didn't eat they didn't finish their plate. I can't finish my plate because, you know, like it just scared me, stuff like that. So I just want to kind of say, like, most of the times that these diets that all social media and all these influencers are putting out, they don't always work for everyone. And yeah, sometimes they do. How do you say, they work for some people, but some people notice that it's not working for them. And that's because all bodies are different. And I think we really need to put that out there, that not everyone, just because you see somebody eating like a very healthy lifestyle, like, and you see there what I eat in a day, and you start participating, like, oh, if I eat like them, I'm going to be skinny, or I'm going to be like this. That's not true. Your body's different. Not everybody's going to come across, you know, they're not going to see the same results all the time. You have to kind of find a balance with your own body and stay in tune and become really mindful about how your body reacts to certain foods and stuff like that. And that's basically what I just want to get, I guess, that point out there, that all bodies are different. And I think it's pretty good that we should try to push that out into society instead of, oh, count your calories, or, oh, try this new weight loss pill. Like, you know, especially with a lot of younger people on social media these days, like TikTok and stuff like that, I see it a lot. And, you know, I have younger sisters. So for me, it's just like, I don't want them to, you know, hit 18 years old or 19 when I started counting my calories, and them thinking like this is okay, and like restricting how much you put in your body is okay because, you know, you're going to get that skinny look or you're going to become the body you want. But in reality, it's not. Sometimes, and most of the time, it's not healthy. You need to, like, I guess, I'm sorry, this is so like, but I just think it's important for us to kind of find that balance with food and to really have a healthy relationship, because not only having a healthy relationship with food, it kind of connects all throughout your body. Like for me, when I wasn't eating, you know, properly, I was eating way less than the average female at my age should be eating. And I just noticed every day, you know, I was real sluggish. I had points where like it was kind of like a blackout. Like I would walk into a room and it was just like, and for me, I just thought maybe I'm tired or maybe, you know, this and that. But when I started really listening to my body, I'd have abnormal cravings. You know, I'd go the whole day not eating. And then I realized at night when I would come home from work or something, I just wanted to stuff everything in my face because I was telling myself, no, Janelle, you can't be eating all this time. And then, but like, as soon as you get to food, it's like I lost control. And that kind of like really messes with you after a while. It becomes like an obsession. And, you know, I know that we have others in this group and I want them to be able to talk about it. So I'm going to try to get fast. I'm just trying to bullet point all the notes I kind of have down to like what we're mainly going to talk about or what I think we should talk about in this discussion. And, well, yeah, also just like, and it's not just about restricting and stuff too. There's binge eating disorders where people don't have control over how much they eat. They just feel like that kind of fills their void. Like the more they eat, it fills their void. And that I'm not very, how do you say? I don't know. I know the basics of it, but I can't speak from that perspective because with my disordered eating and stuff, it was more of like, you know, I restricted, I binged, and then like I purged, I guess, like, because for me, it was a lot of over exercising. I don't really open up about it, but I did do other things.
But I always just had the perception that I was always bigger than I was, which is us like which is what happens. And so I just started with eating, like I just cut down, like I just wouldn't eat dinners or something. And then
Yeah.
it just progressed over time and I would go I think like the worst that it got to is I would go all week. And so we had Fridays off of my school, so I would just go to the studio at night. But I would go Monday through Thursday without eating anything. I would eat like maybe like one bag of chips. And then, but by the time Friday came, I would just go home and I would get home at like 11 and no one would be home until the end of the workday. And I would just binge. I would eat like everything. And then afterwards, it was just like, it would just
Yeah.
spiral. And that was just horrible. Um, but yeah, for me, it started with just looking in a mirror all the time and just with body image. Um, and I remember I would always get really offended whenever people would tell me about my food or what I ate
Yeah.
or how I looked. And I remember there would be adults at my dance studio who were like, wow, Kenya's like really skinny. And then they'd be like, wow, Kenya's gaining weight. And I was like, you're an adult. Like, why are you talking
Yeah, like
about
why do you have to point it out? Yeah.
another person's kid? Exactly. And at the time I was like 12. And I was like, why are you talking about another person's kid? But I would just overhear those conversations. And that again just knocked down my self-esteem. And I just put so much of my self-worth in my body. Um, and where was I going with that? I just put, yeah, everything. And oh, I didn't realize like until I got out of it, I didn't realize how much of my life food took up because
Yeah.
all day, every day I was thinking about
Hmm.
what I can't eat or what situation I have to go to next. And so I was trying to find ways around it, around eating less and less food. And so I went through a lot of just different diets. And so first I was vegetarian and then that wasn't working. Then I would still have to eat too much food. And then I eventually became vegan. I was vegan for a year and a half. I was like the first like 6 months I was like that junk vegan. So I would just eat
Oh yeah, like
like
the
fries.
processed
And that
one.
was
Yeah.
it. So
The
like
store
technically
stuff.
they're vegan, but it was
Yeah.
just like
Hey,
unhealthy
it
food.
counts. It counts. No animal products.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so like I would literally just eat fries and salad. Like that was it. And even like when I was eating fries, like my parents noticed how much it changed my attitude. I just had like I was just so irritable because I wasn't eating anything and I was
Yeah.
over exercising my body. Um and so then I so that was sophomore year and then junior year came around and I was like, I can't do this. So then I stopped dancing completely, but I was still on my field hockey team, my school's field hockey team. And our school, my high school was very, very good. And I made varsity my junior year. And so just competing against them, against everyone on my team, just to work
Yeah.
harder, therefore I thought I had gotten rid of like the catalyst that just propelled my eating disorder by getting rid of dance, but I ended up just transferring it over to another activity. So I would over exercise. And so whenever we would run, we would have like run, jog, walk. I would just keep running the whole entire time as far as I can for the like
Yeah.
however long we did. And it was just exhausting. And my mom, there was one day she said, remember this day, it was my mom, my dad, and I in the car. They were bringing me to field hockey, and I was upset that I had to go to practice. And she said, if you keep acting like this, like you're not going to go to college. Like I don't trust you to go to college and like make it out alive. Um,
Yeah.
and at first I was really hurt that she would say that, but then afterwards I like understand like the way that they went about it, about like helping me through it wasn't the best, but at the same time they didn't
Yeah.
know about it because I didn't talk about it. Um,
Yeah.
and so like now they're starting to connect the dots and like, oh, I see it, but they never
Yeah.
it before. But eventually I remember I went to one of my old friends, we're not friends anymore, but I went up to her one day and I was like, at this point, like no one had knew, they just knew that I was just going through a bunch of different diets and what is Kenya eating this week and what isn't she eating?
Yeah.
But then I told her, I said, listen, I am not eating any food and I need to, and my relationship with food is absolute shit and I need your help like figuring it out.
Yeah.
So she was like the first person I told. And she was like, Kenya, like, what are you doing? And then just slowly with that, I don't really know how I kind of got out of it or overcame it. But just with time, it was really hard. It still is really hard. I remember the
Yeah.
holidays for me are just never, I don't know. I
Hmm.
feel like the holiday for everyone is just such an exciting time. And then I personally just feel sad because I'm like, but what about all these people who don't have a family, who don't have a friend, who are spending time
Yeah.
out in the cold? But this year, the holidays have been great actually, which has been really
Yeah.
nice. But yeah, so it's an everyday thing. I'm not nearly as much as worse as I was, in like the peak
Yeah.
of it. But yeah.
But progress is progress, and that's really good. And I feel like another thing you talked about too is like your parents, like they didn't really know how to. I feel like that's the difficult part. Like for my parents, I didn't tell them. Oh, I still didn't really fully tell them that I like went through that. I think my parents just kind of picked up on it. But for them, it was kind of like a touchy topic. Like they didn't want to say anything because they knew what I was doing, but they didn't know how to approach it. And then it was kind of like how he said, like you get really irritated when you're not eating properly. And so I was having mood swings, like easily frustrated all the time. And I didn't like being that kind of person, just being easily frustrated, easily fatigued. And sorry, I have like lighting problems. So my light like flinches. It's not a ghost. It's just my there's a short circuit in my room or something. But for my parents, they kind of just never say anything. And now I think like how you say, like, it's still difficult at times. Like for me, I still have kind of like that difficult, um I guess, how do you say, like it's hard for me to sit down with other people and eat. Like for now, like I kind of like push myself to go eat with my family, but before I didn't like people seeing how I ate, because when I would go to work and I was in the break room, I just remember people, that's all you brought. And I was like, to me, I thought I was eating normal. I didn't really realize it until like, it started getting really bad. And I was just like, yeah, like, like, okay, yeah, this is all I'm eating. Like, I just didn't like, I didn't want people suspecting it. And I didn't like, I guess, like, I felt like for me, I was kind of just scared. I didn't want people to think, because like, I probably should have started off with my story as well, but I'll kind of backtrack so we can get, I'll have this conversation so we can all get, everything off our chest. But for me, how it kind of started, I graduated high school, and like you, like I was never I was never really like too big. I was always like I would say average. Like I never like, I mean, like I wasn't fit, but I wasn't, I was just like an average teenager. And it wasn't until after high school, for some reason, I never really had the motivation to go to the gym or anything like that. It was never like in the back of my head. Like I love playing sports, but I just hated the running. I hated all the exercise. And to me, I always didn't, I never really cared about, like I always, in high school, obviously I was insecure and like I did care about how I look like, but I wasn't really to the point where like I was like putting in the effort to like, go out and exercise all the time. To me, it was just like, like if I'm comfortable in my body right now, I'm comfortable. And it wasn't until after high school I started going to the gym with my cousins, and I started running a lot. And I noticed the reason I kept going was more like, yeah, I wanted to lose weight, but the other thing was like I noticed I was able to perform exercises easier than how I did before. So I realized I was getting in shape. So I was like, okay, like this is like good. This is good. I'll keep going. And it wasn't until I went back to my high school to go drop off a paper, and I went into the office, and I remember one of the ladies saying, hey, you lost weight, huh? And I kind of looked at her, and to me, I never realized. And I just kind of like looked at her, and I looked at I kind of like glanced at myself a little bit. I was like, yeah, I think so. She's all, you look good. And and as much as a compliment, like it's good to hear that, like you changed and stuff. That's what started it. I remember just thinking, wow, people are noticing. People are noticing. And then once I started like, like once you get out of high school, then like, you start meeting new people and stuff. And then like everybody from your high school kind of just like, hey, like you look good now, you look good. So it's kind of just like that, those comments just like, hey, you look so good. So it's just like, oh, how can I look better? Okay, then that's when the comparison started coming in. Why don't I look like her? Why don't I look like that girl that's working all the time? So then it was just coming to the point where I was running consistently every single day. It was a treadmill at first. I was running 3 miles. How can I run more? It got to the point like a year late, and then it was kind of on and off for like that year. It was like 2018, 2019. And then it was kind of just on and off at that point. And then I wasn't really like restricting my eating. It was more like over exercising. The only thing I was doing is like I tried the keto diet. Oh, that did not work. Oh my god, no. I was like, I did not like that. So then I kind of stopped for a while, and then it was last year around this time, like in November, I had just gone out of a relationship. So I was not motivated to go to the gym. I didn't want to go do anything, you know? And it wasn't until I started, I guess trying to date again. And I noticed that's like when the whole self-comparison, like, why am I not as pretty as her, And I hate to say that, but like the media can really do that to you, all these filters and all this stuff, like, and then just like seeing like, like these like challenges, like, oh, like these girls are so pretty and everybody's so beautiful in their own way. And I really believe that. Like I try to tell myself, everybody's different. And you're the only person that's you. So I always remind myself when I start to like compare myself to others, just like, but no one's Janelle, no one's you, you're your own person. So I always try to keep that in the back of my head. But I mean, it was bad at a time where I was comparing myself consistently to everybody, and or not even just like the way I look, but also like how motivated I was to like keep working out. And okay, that's okay, Ren. Just let us know. If you want, I'll try to wrap this up really quick. Okay. But yeah, for that time so back last year I started getting to the gym again. And then when I started seeing progress again, the whole thing started up. Janelle, like, look at you can keep doing it. So then it started going where I would go to school up and from 9 to like 4 because I was going at a community college here locally. And then when I got out at 4, I had to go straight to work. So from 4 to like 10, I'd come home at 10 o'clock. I'd come home, I'd change for the gym, and I go straight to the gym. And that was an everyday thing. But what I didn't know is that was mentally messing with me. The fact that I had it was like I had to. The gym wasn't motivation. It was like this unhealthy, like, I don't even know how to explain. Like I had to go. If I didn't, I felt really ugly inside and stuff like that. And then that's when I started learning about calorie counting. And once you get into that, I downloaded MyFitnessPal, and then that's when it all started. Oh, in 5 weeks, if you keep eating like this. So at first I was like, it gives you like a whole set thing. I do not recommend. Nobody, please just get that app off your phone if you have it. I promise you, your life will be so much better without it. But that's how it started. I started counting my calories, and that's all I was counting. I wasn't really caring what I ate, like if it was nutritious or not, as long as like, oh, it's only 50 calories, it's only 20. Okay, we'll add that. Like I'll eat that, And it was kind of just like a ticking time bomb. In the beginning of and this was all this year. In the beginning of this year, 2020, I started off eating. I restricted, but not as much. And every month it was like a fewer less calories, a fewer less calories, a fewer less calories. And then I got to the point where it was around August, I kind of hit like a hardship in my life. And it was just very terrible. Like that was totally bad. And then I think after that happened, I kind of realized like, okay, if I need to get myself out of this rut, out of this like sadness and all this, I also need to find that healthy relationship with food, because I was going to I go to a therapist, and she was kind of just telling me like basically that like the reason why like your brain can be so foggy is because you're not properly eating. That causes a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety. And I always knew what I was doing to my body wasn't the best, but it's just like it becomes like an addiction, counting calories. Every time you step on that scale and you see those numbers go down, it's like that high, like, oh my God, like I'm doing it. But you don't realize in the long run, it's kind of really hurting you. And it wasn't until I was coming home and I was doing my workouts, I would go running. But when I came home, I wanted to collapse. I couldn't sleep right. I was losing sleep. And so when you're not eating, you're not sleeping right, and over exercising, I was anxious so bad. I was like having like these like little breakdowns every day, just because like I just felt so overwhelmed, and the whole thing I kept thinking about was like, what am I going to eat the next day? And the only reason I thought about that was because how can I make it to where it's like half the calories it normally would be? And that was at work. I would chew gum consistently. That was like something that helped me. So now it's kind of like every time I chew gum, I kind of stick it away, because I'm like, it reminds me of that time where it's just like, oh, you're hungry, eat gum. Like, it was all like these little, I like found a bunch of like, I guess, how do you say, like ways to reduce my hunger. But in reality, I just needed to eat. And it just becomes that like, it becomes an addiction. It really does. And it's really hard to get out of it. And I want to say that you don't completely just like fully on, like some people do, and that's really good. They completely fully recover right away. But like for me, I'm still in the process of it. There's still times where like I try those fear foods. I try to go out of my way, and like now, now when I go hang out with friends, I try to order something. Before, it took that all away from me, just obsessing about food. I couldn't go hang out with friends. I couldn't go to family events because it was just like they're gonna make me eat. And then coming from like a very big family that likes to eat a lot. We're Hispanic, so my grandma's always making tortillas, anything, like just lots of carbs, lots of carbs. So it's just like, and that's one of the reasons why I went vegetarian. I became a vegetarian earlier this year, and that was the first reason, because I remember if I became vegetarian, it would limit so much for me and it'd be easier. And I'm still vegetarian to this day, but it's more now. I say that I stuck with it because it's a commitment, because I actually did, my body kind of did, like, I guess a lot of meat for me was kind of like hurting my stomach, but at the same time I'm allowing myself not to restrict while being on this diet, because, or like a vegetarian diet, just because you already don't get enough protein. So I try to like keep myself fully nourished, but like how I say, like sometimes it does get really hard. And I think that we need to acknowledge that it's okay, if you still find yourself being like, I guess, afraid to like eat that snack, but just remind yourself, just, you deserve it. It's okay. If it brings you happiness, it's contributing to your health mentally or physically. And it's just, I also want to put that message out there that like we need to stop telling young girls, young boys even, because boys get eating disorders as well. It's not just a women thing. It's not just for girls. Anybody can get an eating disorder. And as soon as you feel like it's taking over your life, it's okay to seek help. It's okay to ask a friend for support. It's okay to do that, because once you do have somebody holding your hand or like just being there to listen to you, it's good. It really helps you. And then it's just like kind of like just being very mindful. Just like for me, like what kind of helped me was just like I stopped following all those diet people on the internet. I stopped following calorie fixes on Instagram, and I started following like dietitians and people who were really positive and put the message out of intuitive eating. And then I just kind of like stuck my whole, I follow a lot of influencers like that, and that really did help me. That and just kind of like being mindful about what I eat. So like when I'm eating, I kind of think like, okay, like what am I feeling, like, and then kind of just taking my time and just kind of always reminding myself, like, I deserve to eat. I deserve to eat, whether it's a salad or pizza. Like, it doesn't matter. It's food. It's going to contribute to you physically, mentally, in any way. But like you said, like, I don't know how that came off, but that was kind of just like, I guess, a brief overview, because most of the times these disordered eating habits just come out of nowhere. Most of the time it's kind of like you don't really recognize it. It kind of just blindsides you until later you kind of start thinking like, hey, my body's not acting right. I go, maybe I'm doing something wrong. And it's kind of just like you don't want to accept the fact that it's because you're not eating, but in reality it could be that. And some people, I wish we had somebody from another perspective to talk about like binge eating, because that's a whole nother story where, for them it's just, they just keep eating and they don't really have control. And I that's something that's like seems very stressful to have. And I hope anybody feeling that way too seeks help, seeks any sources. I wish, I'm gonna find sources. I'm gonna put them out all on my Instagram so you guys can really, find yourself. It starts small. Just, you can start how I started small, just kind of like finding influencers that put out positive energy around food and not diet culture, I guess. So I think that was a good way to start. But Ren, if you're still here, if you want to speak, that'd be very great. Share some things.
So yeah, actually I kind of struggle with that opposite spectrum, I guess. I'm only not on video because my mom could be coming through the door because I think our company is here, but I did want to like say something. So yeah, I'm kind of in the middle of the struggle still. Oh, 1 second.
You're okay.
So it's kind of interesting because I also right as the pandemic kind of hit, became a vegetarian, and I'm thinking of going back to it. My initial reasoning though was because of fear of contamination, because I ended up seeing like things on the internet, and there was this like one movie where it was a fictional pandemic, but the reason why it started was like contaminated meat, and then like just kind of like the fear of like the pandemic, that's when it was first starting, and just I think it was kind of a fear response as well, just like not knowing like what was going on with everything. And I think now I look back on it and I have a little more clarity because we are kind of used to that now, but it was when it like in March. And so but then it was also during that time where I was eating a lot more carbs because like I was eating a lot of rice and things like that, and it didn't feel good. So I ended up like trying to like vomit it up, like just being real with it, because I would feel kind of weird about like, oh, I feel gross. And like even before the pandemic though, like I just kind of always struggled with also just my familial, like family relationship and their response to what I'm going through, because I think that they have really good intentions, but sometimes it just feels like, oh, they're watching me all the time. And I think their hearts are really good. It's not that it's always wrong, like they're not trying to do anything, but it's almost like that's also where it comes from. And sometimes what that has caused me to do is like it causes me to feel like eating a lot, because of like, oh, this is the one opportunity. If I just eat all this now, they won't see me, and then this is like the one opportunity. So it's I'm just trying to get past that. And like recently, especially with the holidays, it's been like I've had to tell myself like, because it's almost like a, like let's say if I'm wearing a hoodie with a pocket in the front and like I'm having something like a little snack, I'll feel like this urge to like, oh, I got to put it in my pocket so people don't see it. But I've had to just say, you know what, no, I'm going to eat this in the open. It's not really that big of a deal. And you know, for me, I'm trying to have a balance because I do also deal with like an illness that affects a lot of different things in my body. So I do need to like personally, I do want to have a more balanced diet, but that's something that I'm trying to do for myself. And I think there's a difference too between like, oh, culturally and then just wanting to do it for yourself. But yeah. And then one other thing I'll say is probably in 2015 too was really hard for me because I had kind of I would say it's traumatizing experience. I moved across the country and it was like a really bad experience, and it kind of devastated me, and that was something too that affected my eating, and like the fear of that and just like not having any support. So I would also turn to like really cheap, not healthy foods. And yeah, and it was like it was really hard for me to bounce back and then like just try to get my body back on track too. So there's a lot of things in different, like especially after I graduated high school, I see different periods, and up until this very day today, the one thing that I did find for me is there's this website that has different like meetings you can go to, and I did find one that I really love. It's called Overeaters Anonymous, and I do like it because it's just so nice to have people that kind of understand and have their own stories, and that there are different phases of their journey. So that is a tool that I recommend, is finding a group. Even if you don't struggle with eating, just finding whatever you're going through, there's so many different groups out there. So that's one thing that I'll say is like finding people that have that common background and that are at different phases, and finding like, you know, and it's like the 12-step program. So like if you can get a sponsor, that's also really been helpful. So those are just some things that I've struggled with and that I've kind of tried to find through my journey, and it's a struggle every day. And I slip up a lot, but then I just try to like not beat myself up and like say, hey, you could do better than this, you know, and not necessarily in like the like, oh, beating yourself up way, but it because you know you know that you're a strong person. And so like, and I think that we all, you know, we all have our moments where we feel weak and we feel like, oh, is this even possible? But I think especially if you find that group of people, I think that that's really important. So yeah, that's all I have to say, but thank you for listening. I appreciate it.
Thank you, because like I said, like it's good that you're here too, because you also have the opposite end of it, like, you know, with the overeating. And I think that's really good to talk about, because I feel a lot of people, when they hear eating disorders, they think anorexia or bulimia, which is, they are eating disorders and they are very serious, but people don't talk about binge eating as much. And if they do, they look at it so negatively. But no, these are all people that, you know, need support and our help. That it's not, most of it's actually, a lot of the time it's not in our control. A lot of times it would, like you say, it becomes an obsession. Whether you're restricting, whether you're binging, it's just an obsession. You find, for me, a lot of times, like how you say, you're still figuring out, you're still on your journey. There's people in different phases. For me, when I was like kind of trying to educate myself on eating disorders and stuff like that, because for me, it was kind of like I was being delusional. Like, Janelle, you're not skinny enough to be having an eating disorder. You're not skinny enough. Like, that was always in the back of my head. But it doesn't matter. And then I started like educating myself that there's people who look just like me that died of eating disorders. And I was just like, oh my God, like, this is serious. Like, that's when I kind of started realizing that, okay, I need to figure out how to get out of this, or how to find this healthy relationship. But it is difficult. And a lot of people, I know some people may not understand, like, you know, how could you be scared of food? And trust me, I asked myself that question every day. I used to sit in the living room or wherever I was eating and just like want to cry, because I was just like, I'm so nervous to eat this food. And it was like, you know, most of my meals were like maybe a portion of other meals. And I try not to do that. I try not to compare myself to other people's plates. And just because before, like, I would just get really anxious. Like, when I did go out to eat with my family or friends, I noticed that if they stopped eating, I stopped eating, even if I was hungry. If I was the last person eating, I had to stop. I didn't want to be the last person eating, because, or if I finished my plate, I felt like, oh my God, you know, like, oh my God. Like, I would just have like this, like this bad anxiety. Or like, I would, like, you know how they say, like, you would look up the menu before you go out to eat, just so you know, or if you couldn't find anything, you just wouldn't get anything. And it kind of sucked, because I felt like a lot of like, many of my friends that I'm close with, they did know, and they knew. I just told them I didn't like to talk about it, and I didn't want to talk about it. So when we did go out to eat, they kind of just looked at me, and they kind of looked at like, what, they're like, are you gonna order anything? And I would just be like, yeah. But I was just like, like, I kind of don't want to, and I can't. They kind of didn't pressure me, which was, I'm kind of glad they kind of like let me kind of find my own, I guess, pace to recovering from all like this disorder eating. Thank you, Ren. Thank you so much for sharing your story, and I hope, I hope that group is going so good. And if you could send that to me, or send it to Joey, so we can put that out there for other people, because I think that'd be really helpful.
Yeah. So there's like a website. It's called In the Rooms, and it's a website that you could go to, and there's a bunch of different like types of groups. So like, Alcoholics Anonymous as well, and just all those different types of groups. So the website is called In the Rooms. And the way I heard about it is through my internship class. We had to go to a couple meetings, and then I was looking on there and saw that they have one for like overeating, and then also like I went to just like overeaters.com or .org, and they had a bunch of like different areas, and they had like Zoom meetings. So it's a really great resource. And so yes, but thank you so much, and I hope to talk to you both sometime near in the future. Happy New Year's and all that. I can't believe it's like almost that time.
I know, like, in a week.
We're all here for it. All right.
Well, if you want, you can leave like any like social media or even whatever you want in the comments, and then we can all probably like, that's what I did in the last discussion I think we had with Joey and them. We kind of shared all our stuff. If you're okay with that, like, I don't mind.
Yeah, I'll put my Instagram. Of course, it autocorrects. Not helpful. Okay. That's my Instagram.
Okay.
Awesome.
All right.
Bye. Have fun.
Bye.
Okay. So yeah, I feel like this discussion was kind of just like an open discussion. I still kind of want to talk a little bit more if you're okay with that, just a little bit more, just because like how I say all these ideas kind of just hit in my head last minute. But is there anything else like from like Ren or me that you kind of want to add to?
Yeah, I was just gonna say I related so much to what you said. I was like taking a couple notes for stuff I didn't want to forget. But yeah, I remember sophomore year, just like everything kind of hit me at once from like something happened and everything just stemmed from it. And like I was just kind of honestly like checking off every box for like every possible struggle that you could go through.
Yeah.
And so that was just another motivator because I point blank just simply hated myself so much that by me restricting my eating and over exercising, it was like just another way that I was like punishing myself for that. And also I grew such a negative reaction to my or negative relationship with my body, and it still is very negative, and I'm working on fixing that. But eating was very correlated with that for sure. But you mentioned sitting down to eat and like eating with people, but for me it's like not like I'm a distracted eater. I'm always doing something. I'm always just busy in general. And so I think it started off probably me just working and eating because I just have work to get done. But now I've noticed I cannot just sit down and eat because I'm like the thought of me simply looking at my food and slowly watching it like minimize as it's going into my body like literally terrifies me. And so I'm always just like on my phone or I'm listening to music or something, just distracting myself in one way or another. And so I want to work on that eventually. But yeah, it's still just such a process. But I remembered one way um that I sorry, I just completely lost one way I would like fill myself up per se. So I would go like 4 days without eating, but I need energy. And so I love coffee. I love coffee.
Oh my God.
But oh my goodness, I remember I had this like big cup that was 4 cups and it was a tumbler and I drank 4 cups of coffee every single day. And that was it, like that and water. And that was it. And coffee makes me feel really nasty and like really bloated. I still drink it, but but when you drink it with food, it's like different. And so that was all I would drink. I would just drink 4 cups of coffee and I would run on that because there's no food energizing my body and it would make me feel full. So I was like, well, I'm full. I have nothing left, no more space to eat, but it was just all coffee. And I remember telling myself I knew consciously it was getting worse, which is another, like it's conscious. Like I know I'm doing this and that it's really bad for me, but I cannot get out of it. And I remember telling myself the day that I pass out is the day that I'm done. But until then, I'm going to push as hard as I can until I pass out. And for me, passing out was one, like a sign that, okay, you need to stop. But also it was very much so, like if I pass out, then people would finally notice what's happening and they would like kind of help me through it. And because I was just dealing with it all inside my head and it was tearing me up as it is. So I was like, I need something for people to know because I can't just come out and be like, it was like harder. And it happened. I forget, I didn't actually pass out, but there was one day I think I was at my school, my art school, and I came so close to passing out and I was like, just like swaying, like it was just like in and out of consciousness. And I was like, okay. And I ended up that night, I kind of blocked this whole thing out, but I'm pretty sure that was the same night that I ended up actually I had my first therapy appointment.
Yeah.
And oh my gosh. And my first therapy appointment. And it was with my parents, like therapist before they end up getting married.
Yeah.
And she ended up committing me to the hospital saying I had suicidal intent. And I talked about it with my therapist later, like more recently within the past couple months. And he was like, that must've been traumatic for you because like, I understand what she did, but at the same time, I think that was the worst thing she could have done. Like, she honestly scared me out of getting help, in all honesty. And I was like, well, if I can't talk to her about it and I can't talk to my parents, like, who am I supposed to talk to? And so for me, it was just personal will, which I'm so blessed that I am so, like, so determined and so strong-willed just in everything that helped me get through it. But yeah, it was just like, I literally just drank coffee. And oh my gosh, when you mentioned the calorie counting apps, oh my gosh.
I was like,
I told myself, I said 120 calories is the absolute max, like, not happening. And so I would eat like 50 calories like every other day. And like coffee, that was it. But I wouldn't count coffee, but that was it.
Yeah.
And it was just so, like, I cannot believe now that I did, like, I can't believe that I did it now. Like, it's so hard to believe that I lasted like a year and a half on 100 calories of food a week. Like, that's just insane to me. But yeah.
Yeah, like, or well, go ahead.
I was just gonna say the other thing. I had a pediatrician appointment coming up, my physical, and leading up to it, I, like, the year before, I had gained like 5 pounds in a year. And I remember I was like, I'm gonna drop 20 pounds. And I had like 5 days to drop 20 pounds for, and but for myself, like I said. And I remember every day I lost like a pound or 2 pounds just every day. And then even after the physical, I just kept going. And so I ended up getting down to like 80 something pounds as a 15, 16-year-old who's dancing 40 hours a week. And I was like, that is just so, like, looking back on it now, it's crazy how once you're out of it, how much you like think about it and the hindsight that you have. But when I was in it, like, I knew it was bad, but I like didn't necessarily realize the extent of it, which is just like all that disordered eating is. But yeah.
Yeah, I think for the most part, I can really agree. Like, when I was, like I said, like, going, when I first started counting like calories, that's when it like really started getting bad. When I started counting, once I started learning, like, when you start counting calories, like, it was like, okay. And then, like, it's so crazy to think, because like before, like, I work at a grocery store, so it was what I had a tendency of doing was every time a customer would come in, like, I was so always thinking about food. I was always hungry and stuff, but I never let my body eat. For me, like, I remember when I was really going, it was a few months ago, like early September, I was told that, or it was recommended for me to get on antidepressants. And I remember searching up, and the first thing I read was weight gain. And I was just like, and it caused me not to want to take them. And I was just like scared this whole time. So what I would do while I was taking them, which was so bad, and this is just my experience, what I would eat was I meal prepped spring rolls with pure vegetables. And to me, a spring roll was my meal. Maybe two of them was the meal for me. And that was literally the whole day. And the reason why was because, I knew calories to anything like the back of my hand. And it sucks because that knowledge kind of stays with you. Like, I still remember anything I put in my mouth. Sometimes I catch myself still doing that. Like, I'll be bored and I'll just randomly add all these nuts. It's like your head just doing math, but with calories. Like, and I randomly find myself doing that still. And I'm like, Janelle, just stop. Like, you don't need to do that. But it was just such a habit. Like, if I didn't have my app, I had to remember it so I can calculate my hand. And I was counting calories of, like, I would take bites out of my sister's donut. I would kind of estimate, oh, that was probably like maybe, and I would overestimate. Like, okay, I would make an iced coffee, and the most I would put is almond milk, and I would measure out the creamer too. Okay, realistically speaking, it was maybe around 80 calories. And for me, it was like 80 calories, okay, 150. Like, I was overestimating them so much just because I had to be sure. Like, it was like I didn't trust myself. Like, I didn't know how much I was really eating. And every time, it wasn't until one time I was hanging out with my friends, and we were having fun, and stuff like that, and it kind of just came out. I was like, you guys, I don't eat. I was like, and they kind of started picking up on it. And then once I realized that they kind of found out, I was like, okay, I can't talk about it. So I tried not to talk about it as much as possible. There was only like she's my cousin. I would talk to her about it a lot just because I knew she understood me. But like you said, like consciously, like it's bad for you, but it's just like an addiction, I guess you could, like, counting calories is an addiction. Like, it's bad, but it's just I don't know, like, you just can't, like you said, like, I'm so grateful that I had, like, for me it was just a click in my head, like, like, you can get out of it. It was after like a depressive like state I was in that I kind of realized, like, okay, if I want to, I had like a low, like a lot of low, I still work on that, my low self-esteem and stuff like that, but I always kind of didn't really like myself and like how I looked, and like I was really hard on myself, very critical. And I told myself, well, like, if I want to get out of this depressive, sad state, I need to learn to, to love myself and be mindful of my own emotions. But before I can do that, I need to find a healthy relationship with food, because food's going to nourish me and give me that energy to find it. If I'm, not restricting my food intake all the time, and I noticed what was that doing to me, I would bruise easily. Like, it became really bad. I wanted to pass out every day. It was just like, it was kind of like if I went to work, it was like every once in a while it was just like, it was, for me, I started noticing when I couldn't lift certain items in my customers' carts, I started noticing, like, why is my body so weak? And then it wasn't when I was running 7 miles, and I would wake up, I would run, to me, like, if I only ran 3 miles, that was like, Janelle, you didn't do enough. You didn't do enough. You didn't do enough. And it was like I was burning more calories than I was eating. I was burning like 1,000 calories a day when I was eating like 400, 300 calories. And it was just like, and it wasn't until all these physical aspects started coming up, like me bruising a lot, me wanting to black out, me just being so aggravated and anxious all the time. And I started connecting the dots, like, it's because you're not eating. And it took me a while to kind of push myself to the point where like, okay, Janelle, you need to eat more. So I kind of started slowly, and it was kind of just like, okay, just like, you need to eat 3 meals a day. If you can't eat 3 meals a day, eat 2. And even if they're small, just know that you had 2 meals a day. So I would kind of just start small. And like, yeah, I would get really anxious sometimes, but I kind of just tried to remind myself, like, if you're still hungry, eat, if you're full, don't eat. Like, I was trying to be mindful, trying to find that mindfulness, because when I was little growing up, my grandma, like, bless her heart, my grandma's my favorite person, but she always taught us we could not waste food. So we had to finish our plates. If not, we kind of got like this discussion, like, there's people in other countries who don't have this food. So it was just like, so every time, if I knew I was going to my grandma's house, and I was there a lot, so if I was always there, I knew I had to finish my food. And it wasn't until recently I saw online that it actually contributes to you as an adult. So that's why, like, a lot of times, like, even now, it was hard for me to figure that out. Like, it's okay, like, if you don't finish everything on your plate. If your body's full, your body's full. But to me, just that little kid in me is like, Janelle, but there's people in other countries who don't have food. Like, that was just so stuck in my head all the time. Like, I always had to finish my plate. You can't waste food. You can't waste food. That was so engraved in me. But then I started realizing, but I'm full. So now, like, when I see my little sisters and she tells me she's full, I tell her, like, okay, then you can save it for later if you want it later, Like, I try to, and that was another thing too. Like, I had younger sisters, and I was like, I could not. It wasn't until one day I realized my youngest sister, who's 10, I get her years mixed. She's either 9 or 10, but she kind of said a comment, and I was like, oh crap. I was like, okay, if my sisters are catching on to this is bad. I was like, that's when I kind of I think that was one of my motivations. Like, I'm not going to set that example for my sisters, because in no way do I want them to go through that. Yeah, I knew I was doing it because I was trying to achieve this, like, certain image of my body that I wanted, and I thought that was going to make me the happiest I thought that was going to make me happy. But I realized no matter how much weight I was losing, no matter how much difference I saw in my body, I still thought I could do better. I could do better. I could do better. Like, I was never content in the present of how my body was. And so, all that on top of, like, my sisters still living at home with my sisters, I wasn't about to set an example like that for them. I want them to be able to grow up and have that healthy relationship with food, not hit that cycle where, like, they feel like they have to start counting their calories. And that's why, like, sometimes I kind of get I guess like anxious when I see all these things on Instagram or like TikTok and stuff talking about counting calories. Like, okay, if you're not a dietitian, do not, try not to like tell kids or people to count their calories, because it becomes an addiction, and it is so terrible. It is so terrible. And especially if it's very unhealthy. Like, I know there's calorie deficit, and that's a whole nother thing. Like, I try to, after that too, like, I noticed I was using, like how you said, exercise as a punishment. And now, I don't get me wrong, I loved exercising. I did fall in love with running. But sometimes it's difficult, because now when I go running, I have to tell myself it's for my health, not because you ate that cookie last night. You're doing it because you want to be healthy. You're doing it for your mind. You're doing it for your body, for everything. But it's kind of hard, because sometimes I feel like I struggle with that. I can't find that balance. Like, I can't really tell if my body's tired or if I'm just giving up too easily. And I feel like it's because most of the time I was exercising to punish myself, not to feel good mentally, and all that, which, like, all the, like, I guess, mental, how do you say, mental positivities, that, like, I guess the good things about, that contribute to your mental health while exercising, like, relieve stress and all that. I wasn't doing that for that at first. I was doing it to punish myself. And now I try to tell myself when I go running, it's because you're doing it for your mental health, not because you want to be skinny, because you want to be thinner, or because this and that. Don't get me wrong. I do go to the gym, and I take protein powder now. I try to like build muscle, and I try not to be scared. Like, that's what I told myself. I knew, okay, Janelle, you realize if you're going to start wanting to build muscle, you're going to gain weight. And that was something that was like the hardest thing to accept, was like, but like I had to tell myself, like, it's for your health though. It's for your health. And I noticed now that how I said, like, I kind of did like a social media detox. I unfollowed all diet culture, stuff like that. And I started following a lot of influencers and people who put a lot of positive stuff around fitness, not because like you need to lose weight, but because it's good for your health. I started following like people like there's a girl on YouTube. She was the one that kind of really started me on there. Her name's Linda Sun. She has an Instagram, but she's around art. Like, I'm 20. I think she's like maybe a year younger than me, maybe my same age. But she's so full of like positivity, and she's really good about talking. Like, she could put all this in better words than I ever could. But she has a lot of videos on food guilt and like what she eats and like stuff, and like how she kind of copes with all that. And it really helped me a lot, like watching her videos. At first, like when I would start eating, I would watch her videos while I was eating, so I was getting positive energy about food while I'm eating, so I can kind of associate it together, instead of like being on Instagram and seeing like, oh, ways to make this meal less calories than it usually would have, like I had to kind of change my mindset. I had to kind of realize, like, fitness is not a punishment. It's supposed to help you with your health, and nutrition shouldn't be restrictive. You shouldn't restrict your body to foods, and it's a lot about changing your mindset. So that's why when I hear people talk about like they're worrying like they're going to get back into that phase, like where they're going to start counting calories again and stuff, but it's okay. Like, progress is progress. Like, I get my days where I'm still like, oh, like I noticed like a couple days ago, I only ate like one big meal, and I kind of like fell asleep, and I woke up the next day, and I was just like, like I woke up really like groggy again. I was like, okay, you have to make sure you eat, like I kind of had to tell myself. It's kind of like a reminder, because after a while I kind of forget, like, oh, like when to eat and stuff. But I always try to like make time to like, prep my food and stuff like that, so I can really, I guess, be mindful about what I'm putting into my food and stuff like that, and how it's going to help me. Like, I kind of just think about all the nutrition. Like, I try to set a lot of positivity around food and like exercise, so I'm not looking as it as like a punishment, I guess. If that makes sense. I think I was trying to get to the point where like finding that balance with fitness and also food, because I know a lot of people, like, when you want to lose weight, you do have to go into like calorie deficit and stuff like that. But that's so much more. Like, you have to really educate yourself on fitness, because it's not like extremely decreasing your calorie intake. It's not like that. It's totally different. I feel like it's a lot of, you have to find a new mindset and just be really mindful about everything. Like, even just emotions in general. Like, for me, I would emotionally eat. Like, I noticed I did find comfort in food. And it was because growing up, I realized, like, when I was sad, my grandma would always make me like, she's like, oh, Mija, you want this to eat, or you want that to eat. I always found comfort in food. So now, like, when I that, I would go to the kitchen, like, where's the ice cream, you know, where's the cookies? But like now I tell myself, like, first deal with your emotions, and then, you know, like, I kind of try to tell myself to be mindful of everything around me. And it also helps, like, to be mindful with food as well. But a lot of the times it's just finding balance is, like, I guess, the difficult part, trying to understand your body and, like, trying to change your mindset, because, you know, your mind is a very crazy complex thing. So, you know, especially like dealing with anxiety and stuff, like, and like body image issues, it can be really hard to, I guess, start somewhere. But starting small is starting, and progress is progress. It's okay, you know, we're all here, always at different phases, and I really feel like it's important to say that. And also I wish that it was more talked about how men get eating disorders too. And I can't speak from a man's point of view, because, you know, I identify as a woman, so I can't speak for them, but I do know that society likes to seem like men can't get them, or can't have them, or they shouldn't be like or shouldn't seek support, which is so not true. You know, like, yes, you can be a boy, and yes, you can have an eating disorder, and yes, it is okay to go seek help. It is okay to talk to a friend about it. If you don't have friends to talk to, or you don't have people to talk to, there's good resources, like Ren was telling us about the in the room. That was such a good, I didn't even know that. That was so, I didn't think, you know, I never really browse the web much because I'm always at work or something, but I think that was pretty cool. I think that's something that could be helpful for a lot of people. So I'll definitely tell Joey to put that out there. But is there anything else you want to add, or maybe we can kind of cover before? Because I think you know, my ideas were kind of just all over the place, but I kind of just want to get it out there, because I felt like for me it was just like, I need to talk about it. People need to hear about it. People need to know that they're not alone. Because for most, like for me opening up about it right now, I didn't think people were gonna be able to relate to me. Like, you're so in, like, it's so obsessive that you think like, oh, it's just me. Like I'm the one that's going through. Like, nobody really understands, or like it's something wrong with me. But in reality, people deal with this a lot, and it's not just you. And you know, you can go find help, and you can find support, and there's people that are willing to help you and be more than glad. Like me, like, you know, I know a lot of people, like, it's hard for them to speak to strangers, but my messages are always open. And yeah, sometimes I can be like very busy or caught up in things, but I just want people to know, like, you know, your emotions are valid, and that it's okay to go seek support. It is okay to go seek help. And whenever, it's always on your time too. Like, it's whenever you know, you have to want to go do it. And once you do it, you know, it's really good. Once you find that help and that support system, like, honestly, I can really say, like, after I started like changing my mindset and like really trying to find that healthy relationship with food, I noticed I don't get irritated as easy anymore. Exercise actually became fun. Now I like to go running and stuff like that. I don't see it as a punishment. There are some days where I feel like I have to work out, but I kind of just tell myself, like, why? Like, why do you need to, you know? Do you want to because, like, you know, your body and stuff like that. And also getting a lot of rest. Everybody needs a lot of sleep. I feel like a lot of us have not been getting enough sleep lately. So I think that's something to put out there too. Yeah. I think I got it off my chest.
Yeah, I completely agree with what you're saying. For me, I would say as you're talking, I was like, well, I don't know, because I would like to consider myself recovered, but at the same time, like, working out, like, every time I'll go through these times that I'll work out, and I've noticed it's very similar to binging. And then it's just like, so I'll work out like so consistently, and then I won't work at all, because once I start working out, it's just like, okay, also let me preface this. I have OCD. And so when I work out, like, that's like it. So it becomes very obsessive. And so I will get into such a routine, but I can't break that routine. And so I either go all the way for it, or I completely back away. And so it's just a back and forth thing. And so, because I'll start working out and I'm like, oh, this feels great. And then I think I'm thinking that I'm continuously working out because I feel better, which is true. Yeah. But at the same time, I can't determine if the motivation behind it is me, or if it's just obsessive, and that just takes away all my energy. And so just the mental battle of it all is so exhausting. I remember I was watching I love motivational speakers, and watching one, and there was a guy with an eating disorder, and he said the physical aspect is just as hard as the mental aspect. Like, it is such a strong mental battle, like, in order to overcome it. Like, it's not just like your body, which like, yes, of course, but fixing your mentality around food is, for me, was like the much harder part. But yeah, that, and then when you mentioned like males with eating disorders, like like toxic masculinity is just
masculinity, yes.
And so like for females, everyone's like, oh no, females just have eating disorders because they have like bikinis and they're models and blah 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 blah. But males have it the exact, I would say, like, it's the literal equivalent compared to like bodybuilder. Either you have to be like really big, but like you have to be big, like muscular. Like there's no other body except for like literal bodybuilder, which doesn't make sense. And so it's just so dangerous. And so I think just understanding that, like, the mental battle of it all is so completely normal. And no matter what gender you are, what you identify as, no matter like sexuality, anything, like, it's all just this, like, I think everyone deals with it to different extents. And so just realizing that there are other people who relate to you on across the whole spectrum is really what helps you get out here.
Yeah, like how you were saying, like my train of thought gets like so like distracted so easily. But yeah, like, okay, like talking about the whole like men with eating disorders, a lot of them, like the toxic masculinity, like a lot of eating disorders, for me, I don't know how, like, why it really originated, but I've known from like a lot of like I guess stories I've read, a lot of people that some people that develop eating disorders, like when some like kids can develop them too, and most time it's like an underlying emotional issue, like they're not dealing with something. And so I think too, like for men, it's like, well, if he has an eating disorder, he's emotional. Like, so what? We're human beings. We're all emotional, but that doesn't mean we can't express them. And I that's why I really wish, like, that's something I really wish I could change, like, in society, was like the way people view men and like eating disorders and emotions, because I feel like it's harder for men to seek help on eating disorders because they don't want to come off as weak. But in reality, or like in general, like, you're a human being, you're gonna feel sad. And eating disorders, like you say, they don't see all this difference, like, oh, she's a girl, I'm gonna definitely go to her. Like, no, like eating disorders don't just they don't have any specific favorite or anything. It can happen to anybody. And that's why I really want to know that anybody can come seek help as well. And it is all like the most difficult part is changing your mindset, because you're your worst self-critic, and living in your brain all the time, you're the only one that's stuck with you all the time. So especially like having, like, I guess, body image issues before that, it's kind of just like stuck in your head, like trying to change that mindset, like, no, Janelle, you are becoming healthier, like, you're different. That's why, like, I really try to stress that all bodies are different, not everybody's the same. Like, there could be somebody who weighs the same exact as me, but they'll look completely different, and that's because all our bodies are so different and unique. And I really wish that people would teach that more, instead of, oh, if you do this workout, or, oh, if you eat like me, you're going to lose weight. No, they're not you. They're different people. People need different needs. And I feel like that should be more put out there than any diet pill or, weight lossing. And it's not bad. I don't want, like, people to think, like, to feel like their weight loss journeys was invalidated, because it's not. And, if that, you push yourself to a better you, like a better you, if you feel like it's a better you, than it is too. Like, because for me, like, I'm happy with how I am now, even though when this all first started, maybe I was a little, bigger and stuff like that. But, like, it doesn't matter, because to me, or like in general, I feel like, how I say, all bodies are different. So I think we should all learn to appreciate all bodies and everybody living in them, because nobody's the same, mentally or physically. Nobody's the same. You're you're the only you that there would be. Like, we're all so different. And it was so crazy. I just want to let this out before we kind of, like, I guess, kind of wrap everything up. I didn't mention it, but, like, when you said you had OCD, I was like, I was on me too, because it was just like, I think it's just like when you find out people kind of have the same, like, mental illnesses, you kind of just like connect right away, because you feel like, but I remember trying to read about that too, how like OCD or even other disorders correlate with, because you know how a lot of disorders kind of interact a lot, and like how you say like the whole OCD, like the obsession, that's kind of how it became too with food. Like it was just kind of like, for me it was just like this, it was just like I had to like have, like when it first started, I was only eating sandwiches and it became a routine. I could only eat a sandwich, so then I had to make it a certain way. Oh my god, it was terrible. I remember that was like I had to like whatever, like every time, and it was like a routine every day. I remember it was like I had to make my sandwich a certain way, and then it was like that, and it just became really obsessive, and I was just like, oh my god. But sometimes those phases will like fall apart, so after a while like I kind of stopped doing that. But I try to like kind of look at that too, because I noticed a lot of eating disorders interact with other disorders as well, and sometimes it's like, oh, like having those double whammy, it's just like like you're dealing with so many things on your like anxiety, you know. So I feel like it kind of just sucks when it's like related to eating, because you need energy from food, and if you're not getting that, then it's kind of hard to deal with all the mental struggles you have going on. So it was just like, that was kind of reality check, like too, like I'm already stressed out from, you know, anxiety and OCD. I don't need it. I don't want to stress out from food either. Like I don't need it. So it's just like, oof. But I'm kind of glad we had this talk, even though it was kind of like, for me, I kind of just threw a bunch of ideas out there, but I think we all kind of came to like I was glad we were all able to share a story, especially Ren. Like I'm glad she was able to talk about overeating, because there are some people that deal with that and they can't, you know, sometimes they don't have control over that, and it's okay to find support for that too. Just, you know, you don't have to be like I said, like a lot of people, they hear eating disorders and they think they like the mental image, I feel like a lot of people see is like this really thin girl. That's what I would think, because society always thinks it's like, if you have an eating disorder, oh, you're anorexic. Like, no, eating disorders, there's actually a lot, like, and it's like I wish society's more educated. Like there's not only anorexia, but there's bulimia, binge eating disorder. There's other ones too, like AFRID. I'm not too how do you say, educated on those, and I want to be, though. I want to educate myself on a lot of different mental illnesses and stuff, just to be more, you know, I guess inclusive about what I talk about and things like that. But there's like so many, and I feel like a lot of people just, like with any mental disorder, we need to educate each other more on them, because like I said, like even though this is like eat like a fear food stuff, like even like OCD, any kind of disorder, like bipolar disorder, borderline personality disorder, every single disorder I feel is so misunderstood in so many ways. So I feel like it's really good that we put these kind of talks and like talks about food, because a lot of people, you know, I didn't realize that there were some people that not never, but they didn't really have that fear. Like, and I aspire to be like them, to eat intuitively. Like I admire people like that so much. Like it was really, like I remember like seeing my friends hang out. I'm like, wow, like, you know, I really wish I could like engage in like sharing that cake with them or sharing that, but it's just like my mind wouldn't let me, because I was so scared. And I'm glad to say that I'm getting over that now, and I'm really I'm still finding the balance, you know. It's like it's not a linear path. It kind of goes, you know, you're trying new things and then you realize you're like, wait, I don't know if I'm actually like just trying to find balance. Because like I said, like for me, working out, it's still like I love working out. Like it makes me feel good about myself, but sometimes I kind of get confused. I'm not sure if I'm doing it, or was it because I was nervous that I ate that thing last night. Like sometimes I kind of have to really evaluate why I'm working out, because I don't want to get into that place again where I'm working out as a punishment. I don't want it to become a punishment. I want it to be something I fall in love with. I want fitness to be something that I enjoy doing, not because it's like a consequence of me eating a piece of cake the day before, you know. But all in all, I just feel like we should put that message out there that it's okay to find support for stuff like this, because people aren't the only ones out there. This, like, you know, for me, it was very crazy to see how similar like my story was to yours as well. Like, you know, it like started and you don't really think about it. Like, you know, it's bad, but you don't really like kind of come to terms with it. So I think that was pretty cool. Like, not, well, I guess like, how do you say, like supporting to know that I wasn't the only one who went through something like that. So I think that was good. But other than that, I think I kind of got everything I wanted to speak about. I think as time goes on, I'll probably be able to like put more information out there. But for me, this was my first time. So thank you. And I thank Ren, who was here too, because I haven't led a discussion yet. And I was so nervous. I thought Joy was gonna I'm gonna let you do it. I was like, okay, I'll do it, but I'm probably not gonna be good at it. I'm probably gonna be very patchy. Because like my mind just keeps rolling. I hear one idea and then I hear another one and then I want to talk about that one, but then I want to bounce back. So it's like, oh, I'm all over the place. But yeah. So
yeah, I really enjoyed this because this was like kind of like eating was one of the subjects that like I feel like I've kind of dealt with the majority of everything else, but eating was still just one that I hadn't really like talked that much about. So I'm really glad that we had this.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of relieving to speak about something like this.
Yeah.
Well, I think we got in. Hopefully we can have more discussions like this and then maybe get more I guess talk about how do you say, like, more specific aspects of it. Like I do want to talk about other eating disorders as well, because like I said, I want to try to be inclusive. Like when I speak about like anxiety disorders, I want to make sure I talk about like stress, like any stress disorder, like how do you say, like in that category, like in the DSM-5, how there's so many disorders, like eating disorders. I want to be sure we cover not just like the main ones, but also like that everybody gets shared, because I feel like a lot of times that's why some people feel left out, because theirs isn't being spoken about. And so I really hope that, you know, whoever's watching this, that if you do have one of those disorders or something that we didn't really mention, like be that voice, come put it out if you're ready to, you know, or like if not, like you said, there's so many sources out there where you can find support from people that may be going through the same thing as you, because how Ren was saying, like she had it's like a spectrum, like how she said, like she was on more of the overeating, and I couldn't really relate. So I would want to find people that could relate to everybody. That's why I hope, you know, next time we do this, it's a bigger group and we have, you know, more information about everything. But like you say, we start, like, it's so good to start small. As long as you're starting. So progress is progress.